In my opinion, the world would be a much worse place if it didn't have Grace Jones in it. Hi guys, there will be spoilers today. I'll quickly throw that out there. So somebody in the comments section the other day mentioned this film and it inspired me to check it out again, actually, for the first time in almost 30 years. Plus, this film is currently free on Amazon Prime, so it's the ideal time to do it. When I watched this way back when, though, I didn't watch the whole thing. My memory of watching this is that I kept switching channels between Match of the Day and Vamp. Match of the Day is soccer, if you're an American. So yeah, there I was, going back and forth between the two, and every now and again I would go back onto Vamp and see that somebody was almost being decapitated by an elevator, and then later on I switched over and there was Grace Jones taking an arrow in the mouth. And even though I didn't have the full picture of what was going on in this movie, I saw enough cool looking bits in it to make me think that I would definitely like to check the film out in full. I just didn't think that it would take me as long as it eventually did. So this film is about 3 university students who travel to the nearest city one night to try and hire a stripper to take back to their campus. The idea being that this stripper will perform at a frat party, and that means that these lads will then get invited to join a certain sorority house. The plot is a little bit complicated towards the beginning. It's a little bit unrealistic that these lads would ever get a stripper to travel that far on a whim and for probably not that much money. I think the beginning of this film should have just been a case of 3 lads wanting to go and look at some breasts, and they're prepared to spend their student loan to do it. That would have absolutely sufficed. But anyway, these lads get to a strip club and they realise that there are vampires in this club, mostly the strippers themselves, but also some of the owners, I think, and Grace Jones is the queen vampire presiding over all of them. So the film becomes a battle for survival. It reminds me very much of American Werewolf in London from earlier on in the 80s. It's got that similar kind of tone to it. In fact, this film is billed as a horror comedy, although I didn't find it particularly funny. There are a couple of bits I laughed at, but the film's not really funny. It's fun, you know, but there's a difference between funny and fun, you know. Another similarity with American Werewolf is the whole young male fantasy-driven plot. You know, in American Werewolf, you've got these 2 lads, they're going off travelling, it's all exciting, one of them meets a hot nurse. You know, we can sort of put ourselves in those shoes at that age, because probably we had similar ideas, we might just have never, you know, gone through with them. In this film, again, it's that male fantasy thing. These lads, they're going off to a strip club, they want to get a good sight of some female flesh and what have you. But there are other fantasies going on in this film. It's a film full of fantasies. You know, you've got the nightclub owner who's constantly dreaming of going to Vegas. You've got Grace Jones doing all these crazy dances. And from Grace Jones's perspective, I think this whole film is just her seizing the opportunity to do something she's always loved to do, but would probably never get the opportunity to do anywhere else, because she does these crazy dances in this with these silly outfits on, and the whole nightclub is there applauding and wolf whistling and stuff. And I think to myself, I'm not sure she would get that reaction in real life. Like, I mean, she's an attractive woman if Grace Jones is your sort of taste. You know, if she came out onto a stage, stripped off, laid it all bare, yeah, a lot of men would probably love that. But I'm not sure she would get a lot of acclaim coming out onto a stage and wearing the outfits that she does in this film, and just the general wackiness of the attire and all the weird stuff that she's doing. I kind of feel like she's just doing this weird fantasy thing in this film that she could never do in real life, even if she decided to work as a stripper. And you've also got this situation in this where this one lad goes to a strip club and then later in the film walks out with a girlfriend. I mean, that's fantasy almost to the point of crazy. And you don't go to a strip club and walk out with a girlfriend. That is so much of a wild fantasy that nobody would even think of it. This might be the most 1980s film I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of 80s films. This film literally sweats the 1980s from every pore, every muscle, the outfits, the hairstyles, the switchblades, the punks, just the general vibe of it. If I didn't know what year this came out in, I'm confident I could have guessed to within 1 year when it was released, 2 years maximum. Obviously, I'll never actually get to test myself on that. And pink, there is so much pink in this movie. We've got people wearing pink shirts. There are brick walls out in the streets that are pink. There's random pink smoke that just appears in alleyways. The homoeroticism in Freddy's Revenge is more subtle than the pink that's thrown at you in Vamp. It just buckets of pink all the way through the film. The director clearly had a style in mind. Probably the only thing that's not pink in this movie is Grace Jones herself, because she's just too wild and wacky to have only one colour scheme. There's lots of cool action in this, though, mainly in the second half. We do get a nice patient build-up before then, and I like that. I'm glad that we don't get some kind of pre-title kill where it's given away what the film is about, you know, a vampire killing somebody out of context. I like the fact that we just start off with the university students in this and we don't really know what the gist is for a long time. It's only when Grace Jones suddenly gets her fangs out halfway through the runtime that, hey, oh, this is what the film is about, and off we run with that. And from that point onwards, there's a lot of good stuff to enjoy. Probably the biggest weakness of this film is the little passage of play that's just before Grace Jones revealing herself, because when the characters get to the nightclub for the first time, the film does get a little bit slow for a while. I mean, I enjoy Grace Jones's dance that she does, particularly the part where she starts giving head to the crotch of an armchair. But apart from that, it's kind of slow and meandering for a little while. But past a certain point, there's lots to enjoy. There's lots of death trap situations in this film. We've got vampires being killed by bow and arrow. We've got elevators moving of their own accord. We've got runaway garbage trucks. We've even got conveniently placed oil drums handily situated right next to the main vampire's nest, just so the film can be easily wrapped up and on time. None of the actors in this are particularly recognisable for me. I kind of feel like this is the sort of cult 80s film where we should have like a Thomas C. Howell in there, or a young Kiefer Sutherland, or Keanu Reeves, or whoever that guy was from The Last Starfighter. You know, insert your own 80s heartthrob with big hair who would go on to have a pretty decent Hollywood career. But no, instead we've got mostly a bunch of names who I'm not familiar with, and I did go on their filmographies and look at what they've done since Vamp, which is not that much, to be honest. Even Grace Jones didn't exactly go on to tear up trees after this film. I would like to see Grace Jones actually try and tear up trees. I think that would be TV gold. The girl in this, she is apparently the sister in real life of Michelle Pfeiffer. That just says it all, because I never knew Michelle Pfeiffer had a sister who acts. There is one guy in this who I did recognise, albeit he plays one of the smaller parts. So Billy Drago's in this, playing a kind of punk gang leader or something. I mostly know Billy Drago from Tremors 4, where he plays this really funny gunslinger, and he's done various parts here and there, TV roles, small parts in films. Once you start to recognise Billy Drago, you'll see him in a lot of stuff. But in this, I was smiling on the inside as soon as I saw him make his entrance, because he's got one of those faces where even if he's just pulling a really normal expression like this, it's still funny. He's just got one of those faces that's funny, and he doesn't have to do anything to make you laugh. Bill Murray's the same. Bill Murray can just pull a completely straight face like this, and you're laughing already. He doesn't even need to do anything. So as soon as Billy Drago walks into the cafe in this film with his little gang, I was just thinking, oh, it's Billy Drago. This is going to be good. I can't wait to see what he does. And I love the fact that this gang of his in this film has absolutely nothing to do with the vampires, and seemingly this gang has probably been operating in this general vicinity for a while and just never come across Grace Jones and her mob. The last scene, though, involving this subplot where Billy Drago sort of says, who the hell is this gang? And presumably he dies after that. I thought that was really clever. I genuinely like that. One thing I noticed about this film is that when the main characters escape from the nightclub and the action moves into the streets, it feels like we're still in the nightclub. It feels like suddenly the world outside at the nightclub has become an extension of it. Like there's no real world somehow. Suddenly the entire town is the... sorry, it's not a nightclub, is it? It's a strip club, but you get the point. It's just the way that the whole thing looks. It doesn't feel like we're in real streets. It feels like we're on a film set with all the pink smoke being churned out, and there's no civilians walking around. There's not much in the way of police or anything like that. So it just feels like, yeah, the characters might have got out of the strip club, but they're still in Grace Jones's world. So to give you my final thoughts, I think a lot of people will give this film maybe half a star more than I did. This isn't my normal brand of horror. And when I was watching this, even though I was having a good time, sort of, I always felt like I was a passenger just passing through this little area of horror. I never felt at any point like I wanted to make a home in this area of horror, if you see what I mean. This is the sort of film I'll watch now and again, but I'm never likely to watch a whole bunch of them within a short space of time. And if I haven't said it already, I'm not the biggest fan of American Werewolf, I've got to say, even though I can appreciate that for a lot of people it is one of the classic movies of the early 80s. But you know what, give it a shot, this film, Vamp. It's on Amazon Prime at the minute. I don't own a copy of this film to show you, but I will at least go to the Bag of Terror and tell you what score I'm going to give it. So let's do that now. We got 1, 2, 3 bloody axes out of 5. That is just slightly better than average for me. So yeah, that is Vamp. There was no Vamp 2 to my knowledge, although what would have been the point? If Grace Jones was dead, I guess they could have brought in some other recognisably wacky 80s star to play a new vampire, somebody like Mr. T maybe, Vamp 2, with Mr. T playing a vampire? No? Whatever. Right, we'll leave it there for today. I'll catch you again next time. Bye-bye.